Israel and the United States may be on the verge of one of the most significant changes in their military relationship in decades. And if critics of the proposal are correct, it could fundamentally change how military aid from the US to Israel works, how transparent that relationship is, and how deeply Israeli defense companies become integrated into America's military industrial base. The proposal is reportedly being advanced through the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act. For those unfamiliar, the NDAA is the massive annual defense bill that authorizes spending and policy for the US military. Because it is considered must-pass legislation, it has historically bypassed the ability for senators to veto it and has become a vehicle to get laws passed that wouldn't otherwise pass on their own, such as this one. But what exactly is being proposed here and why does it matter? According to the proposal, the United States and Israel would greatly expand cooperation across nearly every area of military technology. This includes artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, cyber capabilities, and a wide other range of defense sectors. Supporters argue that this would strengthen both countries' military capabilities and accelerate innovation. Critics, however, say something much bigger is taking shape. They argue that, if fully enacted, this proposal will create a level of military-industrial integration between the United States and Israel that exceeds what America has with any other country in the world, significantly to Israel's benefit. And this is where the controversy begins. Murtaza, thank you for joining us. What exactly is happening here, and how is this potentially going to work?
So this looks like an attempt by Israel to get far greater benefit from its relationship with the U.S. with far less transparency. One thing that was very notable in the recent war with Iran is that for the first time, Israel and the United States actually fought side by side. The Israeli and U.S. militaries both took part in the war. They ran missions together, did battle damage assessments together. They took a big step towards integrating the militaries into one unit effectively. And now this proposal for the NDAA would take a step towards integrating their defense industrial bases into one unit as well too. Now Israel is a much smaller country than the United States. It has a defense sector, but its economy is much smaller, its population is smaller, everything. The US is really the biggest in the world, and this would make Israel an integrated partner in American defense manufacturing, research and so forth, and it would give Israeli companies the ability to benefit from the American defense economic ecosystem. They could get much bigger contracts, scale up their own operations, and in the defense world, when you become an exporter, when you have large contracts, that's really when you get a force multiplier for your own weapons development, not just for manufacturing, but for future research as well too. So this is a profound benefit for Israel for those reasons, but also because it would hide Israel's benefits that it gets from the United States as well too, while also magnifying them. Currently, there's not that much scrutiny or attention at restraining Israel, putting conditions on aid, but there is some transparency to what they're getting. And in theory, if there was a political environment in the future where people did want to impose reciprocity on them or leverage the aid to change their policies, that could be done. This change, the NDAA, instead would put Israel's benefits from the United States into the effective black box of the Pentagon, which is not audited, which is not subject to State Department approval in the same way. And no one will really know exactly what they're getting because it will be so deeply embedded in America's own defense sector. Israel will have intellectual property that Americans may come to rely on, and it could give Israel leverage over the United States itself in the future. We're not wanting to lose that. And finally, at a time where political opinions are shifting against Israel, this would first of all insulate their relationship from democratic oversight, but it would also allow Israel to embed itself economically in the United States through the defense sector and make itself strategically useful to certain politicians in the country. Famously, the American defense sector, a lot of the manufacturing spread out over many different states to give all different Congress members and House of Representative members a particular stake economically in certain projects in their regions that they govern. Israel could play the same game. They could have Israeli manufacturing contribute to job growth in certain states and so forth, and making politicians impossible for them to oppose Israel for that reason alone. So these are all profound factors that would benefit Israel, and the benefit I think would be far, far greater than the $3 billion or so that they get a year. It would be really a force multiplier to a tremendous degree.
Exactly, and as you mentioned, like the timing of this proposal is very significant. Currently, the US gives about roughly $3.9 billion annually to Israel under a 10-year agreement that came into effect in 2018, and that is set to expire very soon. So pro-Israel politicians and Israeli leaders are looking to renew this, and this is a vehicle to do this. The issue is Israel is facing growing political challenges in the United States. Public opinion has drastically shifted in recent years, particularly because of the genocide in Gaza, as well as dragging the US into wars with Iran that doesn't seem to benefit the United States in any way. So this creates a potential problem for Israel. They proposed a potential 20-year deal, which means that this wouldn't come up, but that seemed to have dropped. Now, part of this 3.9 billion, and what's crucial, the crucial aspect of this 3.9 billion is 25% of it, around 825 million, can be spent on the Israeli defense industry. And for those who understand defense manufacturing, will understand that building weapons is incredibly expensive, especially if you want to own it end to end like Israel does. It spends billions of dollars developing a new technology, and the way to make it sustainable is if you have the ability to sell that to a third country. Now, this 825 million in theory locks in the United States to buy Israel weapons from Israel's industry for Israel itself. That means Israel can stand up factories that it couldn't stand up before. That means Israel could spend more on research, and it can build more munitions that it just wouldn't have the ability to do before, because it doesn't have that reliability of a long-term purchaser of their weapon, which every other country has to have. Israel has this locked in with this $3.9 billion. Now, with the integration of the military-industrial complexes of both countries, this bypasses this completely. And that's kind of the whole point of it.
It would actually open up Israel to a far greater market from the United States, and also the building on research capabilities in the United States too, to expand its the product lines and appeal as well. So you could make potentially tens of billions of dollars a year in arms sales through this agreement if it were to go through, and maybe even more than that in the future, because it would actually help Israel scale up its industry, its arms industry, as opposed to receiving aid. And one thing is very important, Samad, about the current aid arrangement is that a lot of it is currently recycled through all of it basically is recycled through the American defense establishment. Israel gets, $3-something billion, $3.9 billion a year, and it uses that money to buy American defense goods. So it was all sold as actually a benefit to the American defense sector as well too, to have this aid agreement. It would free Israel from that nominal requirement, while instead making Israel a full-blown partner in that same defense sector where it could generate profit. It could generate multiple times that by making its own sales and having guaranteed clients and so forth through these relationships. So I do think it's far greater benefit to Israel. It's far more sustainable, and it could make a lot of people Israel very rich while also making Israel a significant player in the global arms market, more so than it is today.
Thank you. And then supporters of this bill argue that the US benefits. The US will get access to technology that it didn't before. The US will get access to scale, to intelligence that it didn't before. And I wanted to ask, what exactly does the US get from signing such a bill?
Well, it's interesting because Israel is not an obvious candidate for this. It's not a member of NATO, it doesn't have an alliance with the United States, has no reciprocal defense obligations to the United States in any treaty. And also Israel is historically a major actor when it comes to espionage against the United States, industrial espionage, especially stealing American defense secrets. That's been a problem for many, many years, as acknowledged by American intelligence agencies. It's a prime counterintelligence threat to the United States. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense why Israel would be the country that receives this extraordinary privilege of this relationship. It's also a much smaller country. That doesn't really match America's defense industrial base at all today. I think it has to be, a product of ideology and the corruption of the American system, where a lot of these agreements and these proposals are on a pay-to-play basis. And Congress, which is going to deliberate this measure, it's historically very much been in Israel's pocket, or been in Israel's corner, you could say more generously. And it's a really unbelievable, great favor done to any country to be given this tremendous relationship. And the reciprocity, maybe there may be some tech benefits that the U.S. would get from Israel, but they're getting a lot of that right now anyways. And I think the benefits to Israel are much, much more obvious and much greater than they would be to the United States.